The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Thousands of beings from across the stars sat in their designated seats, waiting. The air felt heavy with something unspoken. Ambassador Jiho stood at the central platform, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. His face showed no emotion. Chairman Veltrix of the Etherian Empire leaned forward in his elevated seat. His silver skin reflected the lights above. Ambassador Jiho, you have requested this emergency session. Speak your purpose. Jiho looked around the hall slowly. He saw the crystalline minds, beings of living crystal that glowed with inner light. He saw the Fang clans, massive warriors covered in scales and battle scars. He saw the ethereals, ancient beings that floated in containment fields, their forms barely solid. Dozens of other species filled the seats. All of them watched him with different expressions. Some looked curious. Others looked annoyed. Humanity is leaving the Galactic Council, Jiho said. His voice was calm and clear. Effective immediately. Earth and all human colonies are withdrawing from this body. We will no longer participate in council matters. We will no longer send representatives. We will no longer offer our services or expertise. The hall erupted. Voices shouted in 100 different languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up. Chairman Veltrix raised one long arm. And slowly, the noise died down. This is unexpected, Ambassador, Veltrix said. He did not sound upset. In fact, he sounded almost pleased. May we know the reason for this sudden decision? Jiho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. For 50 years, humanity has served on this council. We have offered ideas, solutions, and warnings. Every single time, our proposals were blocked. Our warnings were ignored. Our people were called primitive. Young, inexperienced, we were told to learn our place. Well, we have learned our place. Our place is not here. A representative from the Fang clans, a warrior named Gorshak, stood up. His voice was deep and rough. The humans complain too much. Always talking about feelings and fairness. War is simple. Trade is simple. Why do humans make everything complicated? Several other representatives nodded in agreement. A crystalline mind named Praxis spoke next, its voice like music from broken glass. Humanity's emotional reasoning clouds logic. The council functions better with pure rational thought. Perhaps this departure is beneficial for all parties. Jiho looked at each speaker. He said nothing. He simply watched them. An ethereal named Zontar spoke, its voice ancient and tired. The young species always struggle to adapt. Perhaps humanity needs more time to mature before rejoining civilized space. We have seen this before. They will return when they are ready. Chairman Veltrix nodded. The Council accepts Earth's withdrawal. We wish humanity well in their isolation. All human trade agreements are hereby dissolved. All human personnel have 30 days to vacate Council facilities. This session is concluded. Jiho bowed once, a formal gesture. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the Council members were already talking among themselves. He could hear them discussing how to divide up the human trade routes, how to claim the stations humanity had built, how to benefit from humanity's absence. Near the back of the hall, a young human woman sat quietly. Dr. Hana was a xenobiologist who studied alien plant life. She had been working on the Council station for 3 years. Her research was important. She had discovered new ways to grow food in different atmospheres. She had permission to stay for 6 more months to finish her work. She watched Jiho leave. She watched the Council celebrate. And she felt a cold fear in her stomach. That evening, Hana stood at the observation deck and watched the human ships depart. There were dozens of them. Transport ships carrying diplomats, engineers, doctors, teachers, and families. Military escort ships surrounded them, their hulls painted with Earth's symbol. One by one, the ships activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the void. The Council station suddenly felt very empty. Hana returned to her laboratory. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind wandered. She thought about all the humans who had worked on this station. Marcus from engineering, who fixed things before they broke. Dr. Kim from the medical center, who treated patients from 20 different species. Captain Lee from security, who somehow always knew when trouble was coming. They were all gone now. The next morning, Hana went to the station cafeteria for breakfast. The food dispensers were acting strangely. The Etherian food came out too hot. The crystalline energy supplements were the wrong frequency. The Fang clan meat was undercooked. Maintenance workers stood around the machines, looking confused. The humans usually fix these things, one maintenance worker said. He was a small, gray-skinned being from the Pox species. They understood how all the different systems worked together. Hana helped him adjust the settings. She had watched the human technicians many times. She knew some of the tricks. But she also knew that she could not do this forever. There were thousands of machines on this station. Humans had maintained most of them. Over the next few weeks, small problems appeared everywhere. The air recycling system in Section 7 started making strange noises. The gravity generators in the docking bay fluctuated randomly. The water purification system produced water that tasted wrong to several species. The communication network had delays that had never existed before. Station administrators sent repair requests to the Council's technical support teams. The teams came, looked at the problems, and often left without solving anything. "This is human design," they would say. "We do not understand their reasoning. Why did they connect the air system to the water system? Why did they route power through such complicated paths?" Hana knew the answer. Humans designed things with redundancy and backup systems. They planned for failures. They made sure that if one thing broke, another thing would take over. Other species designed things in straight lines, simple and efficient. But when something broke, everything broke. 1 month after the human departure, Hana received a message from Earth. It was from her old professor, Dr. Song. The message was brief. "Come home, Hana. There is nothing more for you to do there. The Council has made their choice. Let them live with it." Hana stared at the message for a long time. She thought about her research. She thought about the alien plants she was studying. She thought about the 6 months she had left on her contract. Then she thought about the celebration in the council hall when humanity left. She thought about how quickly they had dismissed 50 years of human contribution. She thought about how they were now struggling with machines that humans had built, systems that humans had designed, and problems that humans had solved. She sent a reply to Dr. Song. "I will stay. Someone needs to witness what happens next. Someone needs to remember that we warned them." Far away on Earth, in the capital city of New Seoul, government officials watched reports from across council space. They saw the small problems starting. They saw the confusion spreading. President Sora sat in her office, reading updates from their intelligence networks. Networks that the council did not know existed. Networks that humans had quietly built over 50 years. "They will send envoys soon," one advisor said. "They will ask us to come back." President Sora shook her head. "Not yet. They still think they can manage without us. They still think we are the ones who need them. Let them struggle more. Let them understand exactly what they have lost. Only then will they be ready to truly change." In orbit around Earth, Captain Do-hyun sat on the bridge of his warship. He watched the sensor reports from Council space. Pirate attacks were increasing. Trade ships were being raided more often. The Council's military patrols were always arriving too late. "Should we help them, Captain?" his first officer asked. Do-hyun's expression was hard. "No. They wanted us gone. They have us gone. Now they will learn what that really means." The Council station continued its daily operations, unaware that this was only the beginning. The small problems would become big problems. The big problems would become disasters. And through it all, only one human would remain to watch. Dr. Hana stood in her laboratory, looking at her alien plants, and wondered how long it would take for the galaxy to fall apart. 3 months had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Dr. Hana sat in her laboratory, examining a sample of Krillian moss under her microscope. The moss was supposed to be purple, But this sample was turning gray. It was dying. She had tried everything she knew, but nothing worked. A loud alarm suddenly filled the station. Hannah looked up, startled. The emergency broadcast system activated, and Chairman Veltrix's voice echoed through every corridor. All personnel are to remain in their current locations. The station is under medical quarantine. I repeat, medical quarantine is now in effect. I mend again to that have started medical quarantine. Hannah's heart raced. She quickly opened her computer terminal and accessed the station's medical network. What she saw made her blood run cold. Red alerts were spreading across the medical display like wildfire. Cases were appearing in every section of the station. The disease was called Vrin plague, named after the species that first discovered it. It was rare but extremely dangerous because it could jump between different species. The disease had broken out on Nexus Prime, a major trade world 3 systems away. Ships from Nexus Prime had brought it here. Now it was spreading. Hannah watched the medical reports update in real time. 17 cases. 23 cases. 41 cases. The numbers climbed faster and faster. She accessed the medical center's response protocols, and her stomach dropped. Every single pandemic protocol had been written by human doctors. Every rapid response procedure had human names in the author field. Every cross-species treatment guide had been developed by human medical researchers. The current medical staff did not know what to do. Hannah grabbed her communication device and tried to contact the medical center. The line was busy. She tried again. Still busy. She ran out of her laboratory and headed toward the medical wing. The corridors were nearly empty. Everyone was following quarantine procedures, staying in their rooms and offices. When she reached the medical center, she found chaos. Doctors and nurses from a dozen different species were arguing. A crystalline doctor was trying to use a treatment that worked for his species. An Etherian doctor insisted that temperature regulation was the key. A Fang Clan physician wanted to use aggressive surgical intervention. None of them agreed. None of them understood that different species needed different approaches. Hannah pushed her way to the central desk. "Where is Dr. Remtok?" she asked. Dr. Remtok was the head of the medical center. A respected ethereal physician. "He has fallen ill," a nurse said. She was from the Pox species, the same gray-skinned beings Hannah had helped in the cafeteria months ago. "He was one of the first infected. Many of our senior staff are sick." And Hannah looked around the medical center. Patients lay on beds, their bodies showing different symptoms. Some had high fevers. Others had difficulty breathing. Some were covered in rashes. The disease affected each species differently, which made treatment incredibly complicated. "Let me see the human protocols," Hannah said to the nurse. The nurse brought up the files on a display screen. Hannah read through them quickly. The protocols were detailed and brilliant. They explained how to identify which symptoms were dangerous for which species. They provided treatment paths for dozens of different biological systems. They even included psychological support procedures because some species panicked when ill, while others denied their sickness. But reading the protocols and implementing them were two different things. Hannah was a botanist, not a medical doctor. She understood the theory, but she had never treated a patient in her life. "We need human doctors," Hannah said. "The humans are gone," the nurse replied. Her voice was bitter. "The council sent them away, remember?" Hannah pulled out her communication device and sent an emergency message to Earth. She explained the situation. She begged for help. Then she waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, a response came back. It was from the Earth Medical Council. "We cannot help. The Galactic Council declared us unwelcome. They dissolved our agreements. They insisted they did not need us. Our doctors are now assigned to human colonies. We cannot spare them for people who rejected us." Hannah felt anger rise in her chest. She wanted to scream at them, to tell them that people were dying. But she understood. The humans had been insulted and dismissed. Why should they rush back to help? She returned to the medical center and did what she could. She helped organize the chaos. She read the protocols aloud to doctors who did not understand them. She translated between species who could not communicate effectively. She worked for 20 hours straight until she collapsed from exhaustion. The plague spread through the station for 2 weeks before it finally burned itself out. 347 beings died. It would have been much worse, but Hana's efforts had helped implement at least some of the human protocols. When it was over, the station held a memorial service. Chairman Veltrix gave a speech about courage and resilience. He did not mention that human protocols had saved thousands of lives. He did not mention that human absence had cost hundreds of lives. Hana stood in the back of the memorial gathering. She said nothing. She simply watched and remembered. Far from the council station, on a frontier agricultural world called Green Haven, Counselor Yuna was having her own crisis. Yuna was an agricultural scientist who specialized in multi-species crop development. She had chosen to stay on Green Haven because her research was too important to abandon. The planet grew food for 15 different species across 3 star systems. But now the automated farming systems were failing. The harvesting machines worked, but they were harvesting at the wrong times. The irrigation systems functioned, but they were using the wrong water ratios. The soil treatment processors were mixing nutrients incorrectly. Crops were dying in the fields. Yuna worked day and night trying to fix the problems. She discovered that the farming systems were much more complex than they appeared. Every machine was connected to every other machine. The humans who designed these systems had created a network where all the different parts talked to each other and adjusted automatically. If the weather changed, the irrigation adapted. If one crop needed more nutrients, the system compensated by adjusting other crops. It was brilliant. But it was also impossible to manage without understanding how humans thought. The human designers had not written everything down. They had built intuition into the system. They had created machines that learned and adapted. And now those machines were confused because no one was teaching them anymore. Yuna sent reports to the council, explaining the crisis. She received replies telling her to hire more workers, to simplify the systems, to redesign everything. But she did not have time for that. Food needed to grow now. People needed to eat now. She sent a message to Earth's agricultural department. She explained the situation carefully. She apologized for the council's behavior. She begged for help. The response came from engineer Taeyang, who worked in Earth's lunar farming facilities. His message was polite but firm. Counselor Yuna, we respect your dedication to your work. But Earth cannot send specialists to fix problems that the council created. Your government rejected our help. They must accept the consequences. However, I will send you training materials. You can learn to fix these systems yourself. It will take time, but you are intelligent. You can do it. Yuna spent the next month studying the human training materials. She learned how humans approached complex systems. She learned about redundancy, adaptation, and intuitive design. Slowly, she began to understand. She fixed some problems, others remained broken. The harvest that season was 40% smaller than expected. Some species went hungry. Some planets had food shortages. The council blamed Yuna for the failures. They did not understand that she had prevented complete disaster. While the plague ravaged the station and crops failed on Green Haven, another crisis was growing. Pirate attacks had increased dramatically across council space. Trade ships were being raided constantly. Cargo was stolen. Crews were killed or taken hostage. The council's military forces, led by the proud Fang clans, were unable to stop the attacks. On Earth, Captain Do-hyun read the reports and shook his head. He sat in a briefing room with other human military officers. Maps of council space covered the walls, showing pirate activity in bright red dots. The red dots were everywhere. The Fang clans are brave warriors, Do-hyun said to his officers, but they are predictable. They patrol in straight lines. They follow standard military doctrine. They announce their presence loudly. Pirates are not warriors. Pirates are criminals. They think differently. They use deception and misdirection. The humans understood this because we studied criminal psychology. The Fang clans only understand honor and combat. Should we offer intelligence support? one officer asked. Do-hyun laughed bitterly. They would refuse it. They would say we are insulting their abilities. No. We let them learn this lesson on their own. Online. Back on the council station, Dr. Hana was exhausted. The plague was over, but its effects lingered. The medical center was still recovering. The station's morale was low, and now, news arrived of the pirate attacks and food shortages. Reports came from across council space telling of infrastructure failures, system breakdowns, and growing chaos. Hana sat in her laboratory late one night, looking at her dying alien plants. She realized something. The plants were dying because the environmental control system was not working properly. The temperature fluctuated too much. The humidity was wrong. The light cycle was irregular. All of these problems were small. But together, they killed the plants. She thought about the galaxy. Small problems everywhere. Each one manageable alone. But together, they were killing the Galactic Council. And at the center of all these problems was one missing piece. Humanity. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The galaxy was falling apart. Chairman Veltrix sat in his private office, surrounded by reports. Each report told a story of failure. Trade between star systems had dropped by 60%. 16 minor wars had broken out between council species. The medical system was in chaos. Infrastructure was crumbling. Crime was everywhere. And through it all, one question kept appearing. Where were the humans? Veltrix activated a communication channel to his economic advisor, a crystalline mind named Quartz. The being's form shimmered into view as a hologram. Explain to me how this happened, Veltrix demanded. How did one species leaving cause this much damage? Quartz's voice was like wind chimes in a storm. Chairman, we have completed our analysis. The results are disturbing. Humans were not just members of the council. They were the connective tissue of our entire civilization. They performed thousands of functions that we never noticed. Such as, Veltrix asked, translation, for one. Quartz replied. There are 472 species in the council. Each species has its own language. Some have multiple languages. The translation computers we use were programmed by humans to understand not just words, but context and cultural meaning. Without human updates, the translations are becoming less accurate. Species are misunderstanding each other more frequently. This leads to conflicts. Veltrix rubbed his forehead. He had noticed that communications seemed more difficult lately. He had assumed others were being deliberately rude. Perhaps they thought the same of him. What else? He asked. Trade route management, Quartz continued. Humans ran the logistics networks. They coordinated shipping schedules between species who refused to work directly with each other. They found compromises. They negotiated rates. They handled customs disputes. They maintained the computer systems that tracked everything. Without them, ships sit in docking bays for weeks waiting for clearance. Cargo rots in warehouses. Deliveries fail. The economy is collapsing. The list continued. Humans had mediated territorial disputes. They had maintained the vast computer networks that connected different species' incompatible technologies. They had trained security forces in criminal psychology. They had designed emergency response systems. They had written educational materials that taught different species how to work together. They had been everywhere, doing everything, and no one had noticed because they did it so well. We took them for granted, Veltrix said quietly. Yes, Quartz agreed. And now we are paying the price. On Earth's moon, engineer Taeyong worked in the lunar shipyards. He was training a new group of engineers in ship construction. During a break, he checked his messages and found hundreds of requests from council species. They all asked the same questions. How do we fix this? How do we maintain that? Why did you build it this way? One message particularly caught his attention. It was from an Etherian engineer named Clixtor, who worked on one of the massive trade stations in council space. The station was the size of a small moon and housed 500,000 beings. Clixtor wrote, "The power distribution system is failing. We have studied the human designs, but we do not understand the logic. Why are the reactors connected to the life support through the communications array? Why do the backup generators activate through the food processing system? None of this makes sense. Please help us. Taeyang read the message and sighed. He recorded a video response, knowing it was probably futile, but unable to completely ignore a cry for help. Clickstor, I will try to explain, Taeyang said to the camera. Humans design systems to work together, not separately. We connect everything because if one system fails, others can compensate. The reactor connects to life support through communications because if communications fail, you need to know immediately. The backup generators connect through food processing because those systems operate on different power schedules, which helps balance the load. Every connection has a purpose. Every pathway serves multiple functions. We built redundancy into everything. He paused, then added, but understanding this requires thinking like a human. You must see the whole picture, not just individual parts. You must plan for failures before they happen. You must consider how systems affect each other. This is how humans survived on Earth. We learned to prepare for disasters because disasters always came. Other species in the galaxy evolved in more stable environments. You never learned to think this way, and now you are suffering because of it. Taeyang sent the message and returned to his work. He felt guilty for not helping more. But his government had forbidden direct intervention. The council had to learn this lesson the hard way. Back on the council station, Dr. Hana made a shocking discovery. She had been helping the station's administrators understand some of the human-designed systems. While doing this, she gained access to the station's historical archives. She found something that made her hands shake. The council's prediction algorithms, the systems they used to forecast political instability, economic trends, and security threats, had all been written by humans. More specifically, they had been written by a team led by Dr. Park, a human sociologist who specialized in complex systems theory. These algorithms had been running for 30 years, quietly predicting problems before they happened. But algorithms needed constant updating. They needed to be fed new data and adjusted for changing conditions. Dr. Park and his team had been doing this continuously. When humanity left, the algorithms stopped being updated. They were still running, still making predictions, but they were becoming less accurate every day. Hana checked the algorithm's recent predictions. According to the outdated models, everything should have been fine. The algorithm said the council was stable. They said trade would continue normally. They said crime rates would remain low. They said species relations were healthy. The algorithms were completely wrong because they were using old assumptions and outdated data. The council had been making decisions based on these faulty predictions. They had been blind to the growing crisis because their eyes had been designed by humans and stopped working when humans left. Hana sent a report to Chairman Veltrix. She explained what she had found. She waited for a response. When it came, the message was brief. Come to my office immediately. Hana walked through the station's corridors. She noticed things she had not seen before. Beings from different species avoided each other. Fights broke out more frequently. Stores were running out of products. The station felt tense and afraid. In Chairman Veltrix's office, she found him looking older and more tired than she had ever seen him. He gestured for her to sit. Tell me everything, he said. Hana explained the prediction algorithms. She explained how humans had been quietly managing crises for decades. She explained that every first contact with a new species in the last 50 years had been led by human diplomats. She explained that the galaxy's internet protocols had been designed by humans to bridge incompatible systems. She explained that agricultural methods feeding 30 species had been developed by human scientists. We thought humans were just one species among many, Veltrix said when she finished. We thought you were the youngest, the least experienced, the most primitive. We did not realize that you were the foundation of everything. Veltrix said, we thought you were the foundation of everything. Not the foundation, Hana corrected gently. More like the mortar between the bricks. Each species is strong individually, But humans held you all together. We learned everyone's languages. We studied everyone's cultures. We anticipated everyone's needs. Not because we were superior, but because we had to. We were the youngest, so we became the most adaptable. Veltrix stood and walked to his window. He looked out at the stars. "I need to call them back," he said. "I need to bring humanity back to the council." "They will not come," Hana said. "Not yet. You humiliated them. You dismissed their contributions. You celebrated when they left. They will not forget that easily." "Then what do I do?" Veltrix asked. His voice sounded almost desperate. "You learn," Hana said. "You understand what you did wrong. You prepare to make real changes. And when you are ready, when you truly understand what humanity meant to the galaxy, then maybe they will listen." Veltrix nodded slowly. He sent out a call for a full council investigation. He wanted to know exactly how deeply humans had been integrated into galactic civilization. He wanted to know every function they had performed, every system they had maintained, every crisis they had prevented. The investigation took 3 months. The final report was 3,000 pages long. It detailed everything humans had done for the galaxy. It listed the wars they had prevented through quiet diplomacy. It described the terrorist organizations they had dismantled through patient intelligence work. It revealed the genocides they had stopped through careful intervention. It showed the diseases they had cured, the technologies they had improved, the problems they had solved. The report ended with a simple statement: "Without humanity, the Galactic Council cannot function. The question is not whether we need them back. The question is whether they will ever trust us again." On Earth, President Sora read the report. It had been leaked to human intelligence by a sympathetic council member. She called a meeting of her cabinet. "They are beginning to understand," she said. "But they are not ready yet. They still think we will come running back. They still think this is about them needing our services. They do not understand that this is about respect. This is about being treated as equals, not as servants or children." "How much longer do we wait?" asked an advisor. Sora looked at the reports from Council Space. Wars spreading. Economies collapsing. Infrastructure failing. People suffering. She felt the weight of her decision. Every day they waited, more beings died. But if they returned too soon, nothing would change. The Council would take them for granted again. The cycle would repeat. "We wait until they are ready to truly change," Sora said. "We wait until they offer us what we deserve. Not gratitude. Not payment. But equality and power. Real power to prevent these disasters from happening again." In space, Captain Dohyun read the same reports. His ships patrolled the borders of human space, watching the chaos unfold in Council territory. His officers asked him repeatedly if they should intervene. Each time, he said no. Each time, it hurt a little more. 18 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced its greatest crisis. Chairman Veltrix was standing in the council hall, facing a vote of no confidence. Half the representatives wanted him removed. The other half were too busy fighting among themselves to care. The council was fracturing. Old alliances were breaking. Ancient grudges resurfaced. The Fang clans had declared blood feuds against 3 other species. The crystalline mines had withdrawn from all military cooperation. The ethereals had stopped attending sessions, claiming the council was beneath their dignity. Smaller species were forming protective groups, afraid of being dominated by the larger ones. The 1,000-year peace was dying, and everyone could see it happening. Veltrix knew he needed something dramatic to save the situation. He authorized a complete search of all human records left behind on council facilities. Every file, every report, every casual message. He needed to understand exactly what humans had done. He needed proof to show the council. The search took weeks. Investigators went through massive amounts of data. They found personnel files, engineering documents, medical research, diplomatic correspondence, and classified military reports. But one file stood out above all others. It was marked with the highest security classification and had been filed by General Minho. a human military officer who had served the Council for 20 years before retiring. When Veltrix read the report's title, his blood ran cold. Shadow Operations, a complete record of covert human activities in maintaining galactic stability. He opened the file with shaking hands and began to read. The report started with a simple statement. The Galactic Council believes it has maintained peace for 1,000 years through diplomacy and military strength. This is incorrect. For the past 50 years, peace has been maintained by human intelligence operations that the Council never knew existed. What followed was a detailed record of every covert operation humans had conducted. General Minho had documented everything, leaving this report as a final message. He wanted the Council to know the truth, even if they never appreciated it while humans were there. Veltrix read about the Kelvin-Vortan War that almost happened 15 years ago. Two powerful species had been on the brink of conflict. Millions would have died. The Council's diplomatic efforts had failed. But then, mysteriously, both sides had suddenly agreed to peace. The report explained why. Human intelligence officers had uncovered evidence that a third party was manipulating both species, trying to start a war for profit. Humans had quietly revealed this evidence to both sides. The war was avoided. The Council took credit for the peace. They never knew humans had saved them. The list continued. The xenophobic uprising on Talrix Prime had been stopped before it could spread to other planets. How? Human agents had infiltrated the group and dismantled it from within. The fusion bomb plot at the Council station had been prevented. Human security officers had detected it and quietly disarmed the device. The report listed 14 such incidents. 14 times, the Council station could have been destroyed. 14 times humans had saved everyone without ever being thanked. But it was not just military threats. The report detailed economic manipulations that humans had stopped, criminal organizations that humans had destroyed, terrorist networks that humans had infiltrated, assassination plots that humans had prevented, corruption schemes that humans had exposed, slavery rings that humans had freed. In every case, humans had worked in the shadows. They had not sought glory or recognition. They had simply done what needed to be done. Veltrix found a personal message from General Minho near the end of the report. The general's words were simple but powerful. We were not warriors like the Fang clans. We were not scientists like the crystalline mines. We were not ancient like the ethereals. We were survivors. On Earth, we evolved in chaos. We faced disasters, diseases, wars, and near-extinction events. We learned to adapt or die. We learned every language because we had hundreds of languages. We studied every culture because we had thousands of cultures. We planned for every disaster because disasters were constant. This made us weak in the eyes of other species. But it also made us essential. We became the glue that held the galaxy together. Not through strength, but through understanding. Not through power, but through preparation. And now you will learn what happens when the survivors leave. Now you will face the chaos without us. Good luck. You will need it. Veltrix finished reading and sat in silence for a long time. His hands trembled. He felt shame deeper than anything he had ever experienced. The humans had saved the Council hundreds of times. They had prevented wars, stopped terrorism, caught criminals, and maintained peace. And how had the Council repaid them? With mockery, with dismissal, with rejection. He called an emergency council session. Every representative was required to attend. When they gathered, Veltrix activated a display screen and showed them General Minho's report. He made them read every page. He made them understand every operation. He made them see the truth. The hall was silent when they finished. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of their mistake pressed down on them all. Finally, Gorshak of the Fang clan stood up. The massive warrior looked smaller somehow, diminished by shame. I called humans weak, he said, his rough voice barely above a whisper. I said they complicated everything. I was blind. They were not weak. They were wise. They did not complicate things. They understood complications that we ignored. I have dishonored myself. I have dishonored my clan. I have dishonored the humans who saved my people while I insulted them. One by one, other representatives stood and spoke. The crystalline mind praxis admitted that logic alone was not enough. The ethereal Zontar confessed that age did not mean wisdom. Species after species acknowledged their mistakes, but acknowledgement was not enough. The galaxy was still falling apart. Wars were still spreading, economies were still collapsing, people were still dying. Dr. Hana stood in the back of the hall, watching. She had been called to attend this session. When Veltrix asked if she wanted to speak, she walked to the central platform. "You understand now," she said to the assembled council. "You understand what humans did for you. But understanding is not enough. The question is, what will you do about it? Will you beg humans to come back and fix your problems? Will you promise them payment and rewards? That is not what humans want. Humans want respect. Humans want equality. Humans want the power to prevent these disasters from happening again." "Actually one ride. What do you mean?" Veltrix asked. Hana took a deep breath. She was about to say something that might be considered treason by her own government, but she believed it was necessary. "If you want humans back, you must change the entire structure of the Galactic Council. You must give humanity a permanent seat with veto power over all decisions. You must allow humans to intervene in any crisis. Anywhere. Regardless of sovereignty. You must share all technology freely, without patents or restrictions. You must create mandatory cultural exchange programs so species learn to understand each other. And most importantly, you must rotate leadership among all species, not just the oldest and most powerful." The council erupted in protest. Species shouted that this was too much, that humanity was demanding too much power, that sovereignty could not be violated, that traditions could not be changed. Hana waited for the noise to die down. Then she spoke again, her voice calm but firm. "You can refuse these demands. You can try to fix things yourselves. You can maintain your pride and your traditions. But then you will continue to fail. Wars will spread. Economies will collapse. People will die. The Galactic Council will cease to exist. Is your pride worth that price?" The hall fell silent again. Veltrix looked around at his fellow council members. He saw fear in their eyes. Fear of change. Fear of losing power. But also fear of what would happen if they did nothing. "We need time to discuss this," Veltrix said finally. "We need to consult with our governments. This is not a decision we can make quickly." "Then you have already failed," a new voice said from the hall entrance. Everyone turned to see Captain Do-hyun standing there. The human military officer was not supposed to be here. This was council space. Humans had left. But somehow, he had arrived without anyone detecting him. Do-hyun walked down the central aisle, his boots echoing in the silent hall. He stopped at the platform and looked up at Chairman Veltrix. "You are discussing whether to give humans power," Do-hyun said. "You are worried about sovereignty and tradition, but you are missing the point. Humans do not want power over you. Humans want the power to help you. There is a difference. You think power means control and domination. Humans think power means responsibility and service. This is why we succeeded where you failed. This is why the galaxy fell apart without us. And this is why you must change your entire understanding of what it means to be strong." Veltrix stared at the human captain. "How did you get here?" he asked. Do-hyun smiled slightly. "General Minho's report did not tell you everything. It could not tell you everything. Some secrets must remain secret even now. But know this. Humans have been watching. We have been monitoring. We have been waiting to see if you would learn the lesson. Some of you have learned it. Others have not. Soon, very soon, you will have to choose. Choose change, or choose extinction." Captain Do-hyun turned and walked back down the aisle. He left the hall as mysteriously as he had arrived. The council members sat in stunned silence. realizing that humanity had more capabilities than they had ever suspected. Even now, even after leaving, humans were still protecting them, still watching over them, still preparing to save them from themselves. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Chairman Veltrix stood at the docking bay of the Council station, waiting. Behind him stood representatives from every Council species. They all wore their formal diplomatic garments. They all looked nervous. A human transport ship was approaching. Not a fleet, not a military formation. Just one simple transport carrying Earth's diplomatic delegation. This was humanity's answer to the Council's request for negotiations. The ship docked. The airlock opened. President Sora stepped out first, followed by Captain Do Hyun, Engineer Tai Yang, Dr. Hana, and Ambassador Jiho. The same Jiho who had announced humanity's departure 2 years ago. The same Jiho who had stood in this very station and been dismissed with barely hidden contempt. Veltrix stepped forward and did something unprecedented. He bowed. Not a slight nod of acknowledgement, but a deep, formal bow of respect and apology. Behind him, every council representative did the same. President Sora watched this display without expression. Then she spoke, her voice clear and firm. Chairman Veltrix, the council has requested negotiations. We are here to listen. But before we begin, I must ask you one question. Do you want us back as equals, or do you want us back as servants? Veltrix straightened from his bow. He met the president's eyes directly. We want you back as equals. More than equals. We want you back as leaders. We were fools to dismiss you. We were blind to your contributions. We were arrogant in our assumptions. We have paid the price for our mistakes. The galaxy is dying without you. We need you. But more than that, we want to make things right. President Sora studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. Let us begin. The negotiations took place in the Council's central chamber. For 5 days, humans and Council members talked. They argued. They debated. They struggled to find common ground. The Council wanted humans back immediately. Humans wanted fundamental changes first. On the 6th day, Dr. Hana presented what she called the Phoenix Protocol. It was a complete restructuring of how the Galactic Council operated. She stood at the central platform, displaying her proposal on screens all around the chamber. The Phoenix Protocol is named after a mythological Earth creature that died and was reborn from its ashes, Hana explained. The old council has died. This protocol will create a new one. The changes are comprehensive and non-negotiable. Quote, she listed the requirements. Leadership would rotate among all species every 5 years, not remain permanently with the oldest civilizations. All technology would be shared freely, with no patents or restrictions. Cultural exchange programs would be mandatory, with every species required to send students to learn from every other species. Trade agreements would be managed by mixed species teams, not individual species looking out for their own interests. But the most controversial requirement was this. Humanity would have permanent veto power over any council decision, and humans would have the authority to intervene in any humanitarian crisis, anywhere, regardless of sovereignty or political considerations. The chamber exploded with protest. Species shouted that this gave humans too much power, that it violated fundamental principles, that it was unacceptable. President Sora stood and raised her hand for silence. When the noise died down, she spoke. You say we demand too much power. You say we want to control you. You are wrong. What we demand is the power to help you. Let me explain the difference. She walked to the center of the platform, standing beside Dr. Hana. Power to control means making decisions for others because you think you know better. Power to help means having the authority to act when others cannot or will not. Humans do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to save it from itself. That requires power? Yes. But it is power with responsibility, not power without accountability. Captain Do Hyun stood up next. Consider what happened in the last 2 years. Wars broke out because species would not talk to each other. People died from disease because medical protocols were not followed. Infrastructure collapsed because no one understood how the systems worked together. Crime spread because security forces were too proud to think like criminals. All of these disasters could have been prevented, not by force, not by control, but by someone having the authority to intervene early, before small problems became catastrophes. Engineer Taeyang added his voice. We built the systems that failed after we left, not because we designed them poorly, but because we designed them to work together. And you insisted on treating them as separate parts. We tried to teach you. You refused to learn. Now you are suffering. If humans return, we need the authority to ensure that this does not happen again. Not because we think we are better than you, but because we have learned from experiences you have never had. The debate continued for hours. Some species supported the Phoenix Protocol. Others rejected it completely. The council was splitting again. This time over whether to accept humanity's terms. Finally, the ethereal, named Zontar, spoke. His ancient voice silenced the chamber. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have witnessed the birth and death of empires. I thought I had wisdom. I was wrong. These young humans, barely centuries into space travel, have shown me something I never understood. Wisdom is not about age. Wisdom is about learning from failure. Humans failed countless times on their homeworld. They fought wars, they created and destroyed. They suffered and survived. Each failure taught them something new. We older species succeeded early and never learned those lessons. We became stagnant in our success. Perhaps it is time for the young to teach the old. Zontar's words carried weight. Other ethereals began to nod. Slowly, the tide shifted. Species that had opposed the Phoenix Protocol began to reconsider, not because they liked the idea, but because they recognized the truth in the human arguments. On the seventh day, the vote was held. Each species cast their decision. The tension in the chamber was unbearable. When the final count was announced, the Phoenix Protocol had passed by a narrow margin, 53% in favor, 47% opposed. President Sora stood and addressed the council. This vote was not unanimous. Many of you still doubt. Many of you still fear change. That is natural, but the vote has passed, and now we must all commit to making this work. Humans will return to the council. But we return with clear authority and clear responsibility. We will not fail you again, but more importantly, we will not let you fail yourselves. The implementation of the Phoenix Protocol began immediately. Human specialists returned to council space. Engineers went to repair failing infrastructure. Doctors went to rebuild medical systems. Diplomats went to mediate conflicts. Security officers went to train better police forces. Teachers went to establish cultural exchange programs. But there was a difference now. Humans were not servants. They were not junior partners. They were leaders with authority. When a human engineer said a system needed to be redesigned, it was redesigned. When a human doctor said protocols must be followed, they were followed. When a human diplomat said two species needed to negotiate, they negotiated. Some species resented this new arrangement. They complained that humans were too demanding, too controlling, too aggressive in their interventions. But slowly, things began to improve. Trade routes reopened. Medical facilities functioned properly. Infrastructure was repaired. Crime decreased. Wars were prevented before they started. 6 months after the Phoenix Protocol was implemented, Engineer Taeyang found himself back on the same massive trade station where Clixtor, the Etherian engineer, had begged for help. Taeyang was now training a mixed-species team of engineers. They stood in the station's power distribution center, surrounded by the complex systems that had been failing. A young Etherian engineer, one of Clixtor's students, looked at the maze of connections and pathways. I am beginning to understand, the young engineer said. You connected everything together not to make it complicated, but to make it resilient. If one part fails, another part compensates. The whole system protects itself. Taeyang smiled. Yes. That is exactly right. You are learning to think like a human. Not because human thinking is superior, but because it is useful. Just as human engineers must learn to think like Etherians sometimes, with your elegant efficiency. We all have things to teach each other. The young Etherian nodded thoughtfully. My teacher Clixtor says that before humans left, he thought engineering was about building strong individual parts. Now he understands that engineering is about building strong connections between parts. He says humans taught us this lesson, but we had to lose you to truly learn it. Taeyang felt a warmth in his chest. This was why humans had returned. Not for gratitude, not for payment, but for moments like this, when different species learned from each other and grew stronger together. On the council station, Dr. Hana walked through the now thriving gardens. Her alien plants were healthy again. The environmental controls worked perfectly. She had trained a team of xenobotanists from 6 different species to maintain them. The team understood now that plants from different worlds could grow together if the conditions were managed carefully. It was a small lesson, but it applied to so much more than plants. She received a message on her device. It was from Counselor Yuna on Green Haven. The agricultural systems were functioning properly now. The harvest was the largest in the planet's history. Yuna had learned to maintain the systems herself, but she had also improved them by incorporating agricultural techniques from her own species. The result was better than what humans had built alone. Thank you for not abandoning us, Yuna's message said. Thank you for coming back, even after we rejected you. You showed us what it means to be truly strong. It means helping others, even when they do not deserve it. Hana smiled and sent a reply. That is what humans do. We do not abandon people in need, even when they hurt us. That is not weakness. That is our strength. In the council chamber, Chairman Veltrix stood beside President Sora, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The news was good. Better than anyone had expected. The galaxy was healing, not just recovering, but actually improving. The Phoenix Protocol was working. I have a question, Veltrix said to President Sora. Why did you really come back? You could have let us fall apart. You could have watched us destroy ourselves. You would have been justified in your anger. Why did you return? President Sora looked at him with kind eyes. Because humans believe in second chances. We believe that people can learn from mistakes. We believe that the strong should lift up the weak, not exploit them. These beliefs are not always easy. They cost us. They put us at risk. But they are what make us human. And they are what make the galaxy worth saving. Veltrix nodded slowly. I hope, one day, my people can learn to think as you do. To see strength in helping others. To find pride in service rather than domination. You have taught us much, but we have much more to learn. Then let us learn together, President Sora said. Years later, a young Fang Clan warrior named Gresh attended the newly established Galactic Academy. There, students from every council species learned together. Gresh sat in a class taught by a human professor who was explaining crisis management. Why did humans become so good at crisis management? Gresh asked. What makes you different? The human professor smiled. We are not different. We are not special. We simply had more practice. Earth was a difficult world. Humans faced constant challenges. We learned to adapt or die. We learned that survival requires cooperation, not just competition. We learned that the strongest person is not the one who can defeat all others, but the one who can help all others succeed. These lessons were hard. They cost us much. But they prepared us to help the galaxy. Any species can learn these lessons. You are learning them now. Gresh thought about this. Then he smiled. Then one day, perhaps my people can help the galaxy as humans do. Perhaps we can all take turns being the glue that holds everything together. That, the professor said, is exactly the point. The galaxy does not need human heroes. The galaxy needs everyone to be heroes. That is what the Phoenix Protocol is really about. Not giving humans power, but teaching everyone to share power responsibly. The young students from dozens of species sat together, learning from each other, growing together, building a better future together. The humans had left, and the Galactic Council had nearly fallen apart. But they had returned, and now something new was being born. Not a council dominated by the oldest or the strongest, but a true community where every voice mattered, and every species contributed their unique strengths. The humans had taught the galaxy one final lesson: that true strength lies not in standing above others, but in standing together with them.